What's up, everybody? My movie Left It Wall is out now, and we got some screenings coming up in 2024. February 22nd, Tucson, Arizona. February 29th, Omaha, Nebraska. March 20th, Washington, D.C., and that is a free screening. So Washington, D.C., be sure to check out the movie. And March 22nd, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we're doing a stand-up show, a screening, and a Q&A after, so I will physically be present at that one. Get tickets now at robplacone.com. I'll also be announcing more 2024 tour dates with both screenings, shows, screenings and shows. You get the idea. But for now, Tucson, Omaha, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh. You can get tickets right now at romplacone.com. See you in 2024. Episode 14, Kermet Apio. Kermet Apio is a comedian and a musician specializing in traditional Hawaiian music. His specials on Dry Bar Comedy have garnered millions of views. He's based in Seattle, and when I started comedy there, Kermit was a big mentor to me, and he still is. He sets a model example of how to be both on and off stage. I've known Kermit for well over a decade now, and I still have not met a single person who has a bad thing to say about him, and I doubt I ever will. Being able to say that about someone in any capacity is huge, but being able to say that about someone who's in an industry as fickle and petty as show business, that's really something. He also has the best Mitch Hedberg story I've ever heard. We get into all that and more. Please welcome to the show, Kermet Apio. What does the aloha spirit mean to you? Like, if you had to describe that to somebody, maybe someone who's never even been to Hawaii, like what does all that mean?
In the most simplistic terms, really, it means be nice. That's really all it is. It's just be nice to each other. You know, Hawaii is a very welcoming place, and aloha. I know it's kind of talked about a lot, but aloha means a lot of things, and so that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, oh, it specifically means love or it specifically means hello. It just has a lot of meanings. It's just a meaning of, like, goodwill. It's just a lot of the good feelings toward each other is what it means. Translated, it actually means, aloha means the breath of life. Ha is breath and alo is life. So it actually means that we're sharing, we're sharing breath with each other. We're close. We're part of each other. That kind of thing. So really, it just means to be decent to others.
So what's the difference then? Mahalo is that like more specific then? Like what are the nuances between those two or the difference?
Mahalo means thank you. It's an appreciation.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure if that was because someone told me it means like spirit. So is that also sort of a thing or?
No, mahalo is basically just appreciation.
Okay.
So like I was saying about aloha means a lot of things, right? And people say that it means hello and goodbye. It doesn't specifically mean that. If you're leaving and you say aloha to someone, it just means, hey, love, best, because in Hawaiian, ahui ho is actually goodbye, which means specifically translated means until we meet again. Because in Hawaii, it wasn't about, we're not focused on the fact that we're leaving each other. We're focused on the fact that we'll see each other again, that we'll be together again. So the actual words for goodbye in Hawaiian is ahui ho.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? Speaking of like, see you later, what was it like for you when you left Hawaii and came to the mainland, which you did for college, right?
Yeah. I went to University of Washington in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. So what were you the first person of your family to leave? Like what was kind of what was all the anatomy there? Was there some drama around it? Was it happy? Was it sad? Was it a little bit of everything?
I think it was excitement. I think in my generation of cousins, I think I was the first to go to the mainland. But I think there had been people who've done it before. But it was kind of a bigger deal, right? Because generally you went to University of Hawaii or one of the smaller colleges there. And for me, it was, I always knew I wanted to. I really always felt like I was going to go to the mainland for college, and then I
Why?
wasn't sure if I'd stay. What was that?
Why? Like what made you think like I always want to do that?
I just I'm not sure what it was, but I kind of always had this idea. Hey, it could have been dysfunction. It could have been like it could have been childhood trauma and that kind of thing could have been part of it, and I think it is. But also too, man, when I watch TV, because this is I'm a kid in pre-internet, right? So when I watched TV, I wasn't just entertained. I was connected, man. I wanted to go see those things. I wanted to go do those things. Always had that feeling. And even if it was just for the 4 years of college, I thought I'd just go for college, and if I'll come back home if I have to, whatever, or if I want to. But I did always feel like I wanted to go see the mainland. And it was a really, man, it was a big thing, because you got to realize, for the first time in my life, I was truly a minority, and I didn't really understand that. Because in Hawaii, there's I think Japanese is probably the most, the majority, but everybody's kind of close to being, the majority, unless you're white or black. Those are the two biggest minorities in Hawaii, or at least were when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, to come to the mainland and like, oh, I actually am a minority. It was educational, man.
What was your biggest culture shock in Seattle when you got there?
Mostly, well, I don't know if weather is a culture shock, but the culture.
we'll count it.
But it's the culture of weather, right? Weather in Seattle does dictate a lot of how you behave, right? A lot of things don't happen, because it's probably going to be rainy. So we just don't make outdoor plans in Seattle. They happen spontaneously. And that's a weird thing in Hawaii, right? Because if we're going to the beach on Saturday, we're Monday, we're talking about it. Everybody's all right. We're going to go to the beach, and we're going to do this. We're going to go to this beach, and I realized in Seattle, you just don't make outdoor plans. It was a very weird thing. Now, if the sun shows up, like, hey, we're going to the beach today, that was kind of, everybody gets excited, but it was and then just sort of planning along weather, and how life goes according to weather was really shocking to me, because in Hawaii you don't really plan your day along the lines of weather.
It's funny, man. I mean, I guess I've experienced a little bit of that now, like pretty much in the opposite direction, because I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area, where it has some of the worst weather in the freaking country. Like the
Right.
Summers are humid as hell, and you feel like you're in a gym sock, and the winters are cold and snowy, and it rains all freaking year. And so when I came to Seattle, when I lived in Seattle, I was looking around and I'm like, what's everyone complaining about? It's sunny here way more than other places I know. And also now, having lived in Southern California for a little while, like my wife and I were back in Pittsburgh briefly for a family thing, and it was in the summertime, and we were just randomly around one afternoon, and we just decided, oh, let's go for a walk. And in Southern California, that's just something you'll do whenever you feel like it. Like, let's go for a walk. But like my parents, they were kind of taken aback, like, you're gonna go for a walk, because it was the summertime. You don't go for a walk. You do not go for a walk between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. You don't do it because it's like humid as hell. And we were like, yeah, we're gonna go. It was like 2 or 3 or something. We're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And then like a little couple minutes later, we were walking around. We're like, oh yeah, you can't do this here. You don't do this here.
Right.
It's not something you do. So what made you decide to stay?
I kind of liked the independence of it, right? Okay. Because Hawaii is a very small, it's an island, they're all islands, and so you're connected a lot. And I kind of liked not being connected. And then on top of that, then comedy started, and then that was it. That was really the final. I mean, I liked Seattle. I enjoyed it. And but when I started doing comedy and actually getting people inviting me to do gigs away from Seattle, that to me was really cool, right? In Hawaii, you don't, the idea of driving 3 hours to go tell 5 minutes of jokes, it just doesn't exist in Hawaii, right? You can't you can't build a comedy career when you're on an island. And so I thought, well, I'll ride this comedy thing for as long as I can. And then as a comedian, Seattle's just a great town. It's not just because of gigs, but also because, the weather and stuff. It's great to kind of sit by the window and just write a few jokes because you're not going outside. But that rain as a backdrop to writing, like Seattle has, and Seattle has great support for all artists. And so it was really a great city to be in. And that was it. If I had any inkling that I was going to go back, probably my second year of open mic, that started to really go away because I thought I need to be, because at the time, when you first start doing comedy, you're not flying anywhere. Nobody's flying you to any gigs. So I needed to be around where I could drive to gigs in order to get better. And that became my focus. Well, I just want to be able to get to stage time. And that was it. And as I progressed in comedy, I just decided I really do like the city. I really do like Seattle. So yeah, it was first, it was kind of just, I liked being on my own. And second, I just pursued comedy. I just wanted to keep going.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense too, a lot about the writing part, because you look at like Seattle and the Pacific Northwest in general, not even just Seattle, but like the Pacific Northwest in general is one of the most literary abundant places in the country.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's definitely part of the reason why. Like part of the reason why is it is such a great backdrop to just sit and write.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that I wasn't. It's one of those things where you don't realize you were looking for. I wasn't looking for that. The last thing I was trying to do is be studious about comedy. I just want to have fun. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, you notice like for 2 days, it's just been pouring rain. And I was just sitting there at my desk looking out the window and started coming up with a joke here or there. And I noticed like, oh, wait, this is helpful. This is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So since we're still on Hawaii, let's get into one of your not necessarily new endeavors, because you've been doing it your whole life, but now you're like, you kind of have this new incarnation with it, and that's your music. Because like now you're really going out and doing that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it started as just something you were doing during, the 2020 lockdown to just kind of, have something to do. And so yeah, share that story. Like what exactly transpired there?
So, okay, well, it goes back to, so when I first came to Seattle, I knew about 3 or 4 chords on guitar, and for a lot of Hawaiian music, that's all you really know. If you can, you can play a lot of songs if you know that. Like you can play if you know 4 chords, you can strum a bunch of songs. And then when comedy became my full-time job, I realized I needed another hobby. I just lost my hobby, right? So I was in this really scary motel that I didn't want to be in. So I went for a walk, and there was a pawn shop with a guitar for $40. And so I bought the guitar, and I would take it on the road with me. And before they would charge for luggage, I would even fly with it. When I started flying, I would take the guitar with me. Actually, at a club owner, I walked out from baggage claim, and this club owner looked at me and he goes, "Oh no, you're not a guitar act." And like he was really disappointed that I was, and I said, no, this is just for the hotel room. I don't do it in the stage. And so it just became a little hobby. And then I started learning. I decided that slack key music, which is a whole different kind of approach to the guitar. It's open tuning type stuff. I didn't know anything about it, but I love listening to it. So I started learning slack key. All right. So now we get to lockdown where I can't do stand up. And this is kind of pre Zoom shows were figured out. And we're just sitting around wondering if we're going to get back to work, right? And I was getting very stressed about it. And so a friend of mine, Kermet Apio, who's an amazing guitarist, he just put on his Facebook Live camera and just started playing. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And so I asked him about it, and so I did it. And it just became a thing where I started doing it every Wednesday. And I still, whenever I'm not doing comedy or a gig or whatever, I have, I'll do a Wednesday show on Facebook, and it's gotten better. I learned a lot about sound, because at first I was just doing it through the air to the laptop mic,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've, got a soundboard, and I can go into it, and I have effects pedals and things like that. But like, it's really grown.
Yeah, it sounds great, man. I mean, I'm a regular listener, and yeah, I mean, you sound incredible.
I appreciate it. It was a learning experience, but I had nothing else to do, and so The great thing is it's made me a better musician because I didn't want to play the same songs every week. So I started trying, different songs, and then a bigger amount of non-Hawaiian songs. Like usually the last 3 to 5 songs are non-Hawaiian, or I'll put them in there in the order somewhere. I do a lot of different types of Hawaiian songs from like the 70s and 80s traditional songs, contemporary songs, to like reggae songs. Reggae music is very popular in Hawaii, and so so I cover a lot of people. I have a few originals that I kind of sneak in there every once in a while, and it's become a thing. It's got a very small, I want to point that out, a very small but loyal group, like of about 20 to 35 people who listen, and then people who do kind of come in and listen and may not comment, but there is a very fun group that kind of, I see them in the comments during the show. I see them talking to each other, like replying like, "Hey, how's it going?" They live in different states, and it's been a blast, and it's actually made me a better musician. And I'm still, I want to point this out, still not like, nobody's going to watch my Wednesday show and go, "Oh, that's a professional musician," but it has made me a lot better than I was in 2020, and I'm getting live gigs now. So I've got a few, like last year, I think I did about 8 music gigs, which is nice because, as you know, comedy slows down a lot in the summer.
Right.
It's tricky in the summer. So it's nice to have that sort of other thing going on in the summer. And
yeah. Well, so what was that like for you when you kind of were in a situation where you're like, oh man, I'm doing this live, and I'm not telling jokes. Like, I mean, I know you've done other small things where you've like done a couple songs, right? Because like I know there's been situations where you would do Hawaiian music. Because I remember back when I lived in Seattle, you did. I forget the context, but there was a context where you were performing some Hawaiian music at a live event, and the reason I remember this is because you get up there and your opening line was, you were like, "If you were expecting me to tell jokes, I'm sorry. If you're here to hear me play music, I'm sorry." And I'm like, I love Gurrent. That was the best. So I don't remember what it...
You know what it was? It was the Folklife Festival in Seattle.
Yes.
It was Folklife. So
yes,
Folklife is great. So I had not done live, and I was so nervous doing live music. And Folklife has been great. They've had me on, I think I've done it, about 8 or 9 of the last 10 or 12 years, so... they're great, and so that was my first sort of introduction to performing live, but that was it, and that's once a year. That's Memorial Day weekend, and other than that, I really wasn't doing anything live. So it was a very rare thing that would happen. And by the way, I want to say this, as a comedian, you really appreciate what you get to do because you walk up, you tell jokes, and you leave. When you're a musician, you're 2 hours earlier, and you're setting the whole thing up, you're sound checking, and then afterwards you're rolling chords.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it makes you really appreciate comedy. Like, just come up and tell jokes.
Oh yeah, no, dude, totally. I mean, a lot of my musician friends, like, we talk about that sometimes. I'm like, yeah, it's always crazy when, like, I'm doing a rock club and they're like, "Can you be here for sound check at 5:30?" And it's like, I guess I could, but you realize that's not necessary, right? Like, you realize, like,
right. Yeah. And then that's the thing, rarely do you go to a comedy gig and you need to load up a hand truck. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, well, let's get into some comedy, and I've said this to you before. I mean, you were one of those people, like, when I was starting out, you were a very big mentor to me. And also, you kind of, it was one of those things, like, there was a lot, when you get into comedy and you start meeting the various types of folks who do it for a living, there's definitely some bad examples out there in the world, and you were one of the good ones. Like, you were one of the people who kind of taught me.
I was wondering where that was going. I was kind of
well, no, I mean, I just, like, I don't want to, like it's just one of those things where when you're starting out, you're kind of looking around you, and it's nice when there's somebody who shows you by example. You never, like, sat me down and said this to me, but basically showed me via example, hey, you can have a career in comedy and not be, an alcoholic who's living in your car. Like it doesn't have to be that way. You know what I mean? Like, It was a great lesson. It was a really important lesson.
I appreciate that. I don't really like volunteering advice because it's a weird thing when it was done to me. And but if people ask questions, I'm always happy to answer and see if I can help. But I appreciate that, man. That's nice of you to say.
Well, I remember I wanted to bring this up when there was a thing going on in town, and this was when I was basically still an open micer. So I was just happy there was anything giving me like a platform that said comedian, and it was something that Comcast was doing. I'll say the company. I don't think it matters, especially not on this show. But like Comcast was doing this thing, and they were taping comedians, and I read the fine print, and it was a ridiculous, horrible idea in so many ways. Now, I knew that I was like just Joe open micer, and I will probably cringe at every joke I was telling in like a year's time. So I was like, well, whatever. I'm just happy. But I thought if I was established at all, I would refuse to do this. And I figured no, like, more established comedians in the area would do it. I just assumed they wouldn't. And, you know, you were the only one, literally the only one. And I'm not like saying that to be disparaging on anyone else. Maybe they just didn't read it, whatever. I'm not judging. But you were the only one who was like, I'm not doing that. and other people were confused by it. Like people are like, yeah, Kermet Apio is not doing it. I don't understand why. And I'm like, what, did you read it? What do you mean you don't understand why? Kermit just set a good example for us. And he's the only one who did. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember, but that does sound like me though.
You were the only one, man. It's funny,
Wow.
like when you're starting out, and I'm sure you have this the other way too. Like when you're starting out, you really remember the stuff that stuck out to you, that set an example for you, that really made you like think about like who you want to be and stuff. But then when you're the person, you know, like kind of setting that example, you don't. I mean, there are times where now, like you know, people will come up to me. They'll be like, "I'll never forget when you said da 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 da," and I'll be like, "I don't freaking remember saying that, but that's cool that you remember." Like, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember doing that, but I'm glad it was helpful for you. But yeah, man. All right. Well, I guess we can't really talk much about it then, since you don't remember.
No. Man.
But it was cool.
Do you? What was the? I guess
Comcast was doing, they were filming comedian sets, and then it was on this like on demand thing that if you had the Comcast cable package, you could get like these comedians on demand. And, you know, they needed a lot of content. So basically everybody who could just finagle their way through 5 minutes, like everyone from headliners to pretty much open micers, eventually got to do it. And you were the only one who I guess like really read it and was like, I ain't doing this.
What was the name of it? Yeah, there was a name for the website. They're pushing it through, and then we're gonna. But the thing was, they could show it a million times. They could show. They just could literally show it wherever, and you'd get nothing. It basically just nothing would come back to you. And so I was kind of like,
right.
Well, that seems, you know, and look, hey, part of this, thank you for describing in detail, because I do remember it. Part of it is that I wish I was more prolific, right? Not only am I not, I don't write as much as I should, but I'm also really hard on my material. It's really difficult for things to stay, because I'll try it for a long time and mess with it and tinker with it. And if I just not feeling with it, and it might be getting a few laughs here and there, but if I don't like it, I'll, you know. So to me, I want to overexpose 5 minutes of this stuff that maybe I'd like to do in a club, but I don't want to do it if tons of people have seen it and I'm not getting paid for it at all, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? I think it was like you get a little bit of a flat thing for doing it, and then that was it. And you
got nothing.
That's right.
Or at least I didn't get anything. And then the fine print that stuck out to me that was concerning was they basically said like they have carte blanche on this material. Like they could lay claim to basically anything. to the point where they could like even stop you from doing it. I doubt there'd be a scenario where they would do that. Right. But they had this like boilerplate agreement that was freaking nuts. Like it seemed more extensive than you would have to sign if you were getting paid for something.
Yes. Right. That's exactly right. And I'm like, wait, I'm giving this away, and they literally have this to do whatever they can show. They can show it anywhere, not just this website or this cable thing. They can sell it to anything they want, and they have it not just the set, the recording of the set, but the material. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. And I thought about it. I talked to a couple of more well-known comedians, and they were not, but I didn't want to tell anybody.
What did they say? Because you were the only one, as far as I remember. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe there was someone else, but as far as I remember, you were the only like established person who said no. Maybe it might have been you and David Crow.
Yes.
Now that I'm trying to.
And Brad Upton, because he was one of the people I talked to, and Brad's always been a person I've looked up to, and all the things you're saying about me, Brad was that guy for me. I looked up to Brad and the way he handled himself on and off stage, and he's also 100 times better business person. So I had talked to Brad and then some other more well-known comics, but yes, it was basically the three of us.
Interesting. So what transpired between the three of you? like what was like give me some insider baseball, because I was just like Joe open micer, stars in my eyes at the time, but you guys were like, we're not doing this. Did you get any pushback? You don't have to mention names.
No, there's no pushback. It really was because I think the people in Seattle who were working with them setting up I think they realized that this is kind of a goofy looking deal, right? And so I think they sort of understood that it wasn't, it wasn't like, dude, you're throwing away your career if you don't do this. Nobody, you know what I mean? Nobody was going to. So
this like local access thing, you're throwing it all away. When local access knocks, you don't ignore it.
So it wasn't okay. So here's the thing: Brad Upton, David Crow are not only two of the best comics out there; they're also incredible business people. They are smart business people, and I'm not. I was a guy that I've never been into business. I'm basically I'm like a salesman selling a product he hates. You know what I mean? I'm like those vacuum cleaner salesmen that show up at your door. They don't even own that vacuum, but they've got to sell it to you at your front door. That's how I feel about comedy, and so I've never been good at the business end. And so really, what it was me asking them and them saying. They weren't asking me like, are you going to do it? They were like, nah, I'm not going to do it. And I said, yeah, because I've been reading this thing and it seems, and Brad, who knows how to read these things, kind of clarified more. And I went, that's what it sounds like. And he goes, that's what it is. Don't sign this thing. And so it really was me looking for advice more than a triumvirate of minds getting together.
I appreciate your honesty, man, because now, like for years, I have been misappropriating credit, and the open micer community circa 2008, 2009 credited Kermet Apio for Brad Upton's work, and that was my fault. But I'm sure, I think Brad's doing okay.
I'm still proud of it because I wasn't going to do it before I went to Brad, but because it seemed weird. I was like, wait, what's in this? And but it was definitely Brad and Crow that were kind of like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do it, and I don't even know if Dave was offered it, because Dave was kind of moving pretty fast at the time. So I don't even think they went to Crow.
Well, I think that was right around the time he sold. I think it was like Stars bought one of his specials.
Showtime.
Or Showtime. Yeah. So I think it was like right around the same year that happened for him. So I'd imagine they might not have wanted to ask him. Do you want to let us own something for free that you just sold to Showtime? No, I'm going to pass on that. Sorry, my cat's going nuts. And that's interesting. I'd love to have Brad on this show, because there's a guy who for years everybody wondered why is he not more famous? And now he is.
He's doing really well, man.
He's doing incredibly well.
The dry bar special clips went well, and he was smart enough to know how to capitalize on it. And here's the other thing. Imagine being 66 and getting this kind of push. That means you work hard. That means you work really hard, right? Because at that age, there are certain gigs you're just not doing, right? People whose clubs, average 20 to 35, they're not going to bring a 66-year-old in, but yet he's doing better now than he has his whole career. And that says so much, because I'm telling you, there's the group that you start out with at open mic, and then some people go full time and everything, but the numbers, people trail off after a while. He's at 65 and he's still doing it full time, and he's doing, like I said, really well. It's just impressive to think about it that way.
Yeah, well, and he's had a wonderful career too. Yeah, it's not like oh man, he was slogging it. No, he's had a wonderful career as he's done cruise ships, and he has great corporate clients because he's very, very good. Yep. But now he's getting like some recognition. Yes. That he had not gotten before, because his specials, he had a couple of them go viral. Like, it wasn't even just one. Like, he's had multiple specials go viral. He had
one clip that had 90 million. It was a 5-minute clip. Had 90 million views. And talk about friendship. He texted me one time, and this is about when his I care about maybe a year after both of our dry bar specials came out. And he said, "Hey, I saw that your one clip's doing pretty good. How many views?" And I was like, I think it's like 20 million. It's pretty cool, And he goes, yeah, mine's got 90. And then that's the whole text.
Perfect.
I cracked up, man. So that clip had 90. Then all of a sudden the full special, because people went over to see the full special, that did really well. He did a second special that immediately, when it got posted, had a bunch of views. So he's really done well with the dry bar stuff.
Have you seen a bump from dry bar as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Not anything like Brad though, but yes, I have seen a little bit of a bump in specific situations, specific places, like in Utah, where dry bar is sort of centered. Mm-hmm. I do well there. People are coming to see me, and it's kind of weird because people will come to see you in really obscure places where I know there's no draw for me, in some place in the Midwest, like Appleton, Wisconsin or something, and people will come up and after a show and say, "We had no idea you came here. Like we were so excited when we saw your name. We've been fans." I'm like, "Really? In Appleton, Wisconsin?" So dry bar has really kind of branched things out, and they said it was going to happen. Because I was me and Brad, and there was a bunch of people who were in the first 2 batches of comics. So about
oh really? You were like one of the
yeah. So I think they did 7 in the first batch and 10 in the second batch, and I was in that 10 in the second batch, something like that. But I was in the first group, and they were telling us, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we're hoping to get these clips will go out, and hopefully they get millions of views." And we were just like, "Yeah, we've bought Facebook ads before. Good luck with this," And they did it. They did what they said they were going to do. So it is. Like I said, what's happened for me, not even close to what Brad has gotten, but I'm very happy because it has expanded my reach a lot.
Why do you think it's been so successful? I mean, they get very funny comics, but it's like, I mean, you need more than that. I mean, the competition for eyeballs is, pretty intense. Like, what do you think made them do so well?
I think it was because they basically thought, well, the main reason they did is they needed something with cheap production. And they realized, comedy is just a microphone and one person talking and then cameras capturing it, right? So they realized it's the cheapest production way to go. And so what they wound up doing is, because certainly as Comedy Central started pushing into edgier, as I don't think Netflix was doing a ton of comedy at the time, but a lot of comedy was edgier, and rightly so. There's a lot of really brilliant comics but I think the idea they marketed at first to their customers and then outward is basically, there's a bunch of clean comics that you don't know about. And I think that's what that marketing strategy was, what made it work, because people said, I love the edgier comics. But there's not that many clean comics. There aren't. And Drybar answered that by saying, yes, there are. You just don't know them. Check out this one. Oh, and how about this one? And they would just kind of deep dive Drybar clicks and going, how do I not know these people? And so there's this great energy about it. Like they were filling this gap, this void that people didn't know they had, right? And a lot of that is marketing, but it does work. I mean, it does. People say, yeah, you know what? I love clean comedy. I want to see some clean comics. And so all of a sudden, a guy like Brad Upton shows up with, who's been doing it how many years brilliantly, like you said, brilliantly for many years, and all of a sudden this brand new crowd goes, this is one of the funniest people I've ever seen, and everybody in Seattle's going, yeah, we've been trying to tell you guys that for 30 years. yeah, Brad Upton is really funny.
Yeah.
And so it really was, they brought something to people and convinced people that you've been missing this, and they're in. The crowd has grown. Like I said, they started in Utah, had a very, very obviously because of clean comedy, very Christian, following and everything. And now it's expanded to a much more broader demographic. It's not just conservatives and Christians. There are people just they like clean comedy,
Yeah, and because it's good. I mean, I've never seen anything on Drybar or the other, like the Open Bar thing, like all of those, they're curating good comedy. So it's like, it's good comedy. And with the Drybar thing, it's like, well, it's cleaner. So you can kind of watch it around the family holiday table or something. And you don't have to worry because it's just cleaner comedy. But it's also good.
And that was smart on Drybar's part, right? I think initially they were thinking that it was going to be a thing for just sort of people who are more conservative or in their thought, but then they sort of realized, like, nah, if it's quality comedy, if it's good comedy and happens to be clean, that's a market too. And that was so smart on their part, and that really expanded them quite a bit.
All right, so since you mentioned politics, it's on my list of topics, so we'll go there next a little bit. So I this is something that I kind of had to ask, and this is sort of more for me. Politically, you and I are very, very much aligned.
Yeah.
And so I have to ask you this as the Hawaii connection. Were you ever into Tulsi Gabbard?
No, not really.
Fair.
And here's why, and I don't want to. So, a friend, one of my best friends, is very involved in the scene. He works at the Capitol. I'll say that, and
okay.
I won't. But anyway, I didn't know much, and so I called him one time, and as we talked about it, he was trying to not give an opinion either. Like he wasn't trying to sway my opinion, but the one word that he said like 3 times in the conversation was opportunist. And this is before we knew a lot about it, right? This is when it was like, a Democrat running for something, and I was very fascinated by the conversation. So he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't trying to give there was no like partisan leaning opinion or anything like that. It was really just, well, here's who she is, here's who you know, and so I saw it in that view, and I will say, during that first kind of campaign and everything, there were things I completely agreed with that she was saying, and there were things I didn't agree as much. But I wasn't like on board there. I mean, obviously, anybody from Hawaii in the spotlight is great for me as a Hawaiian, but I kind of had what I was looking for in that campaign, and I didn't feel like she was a complete match for my beliefs, No,
I hear you. I mean, because it's one of the biggest, like sort of, I've had to, wipe the egg off my face for a while, because I didn't vote for her. I voted for Bernie and I campaigned for Bernie. But, at one point in time, I thought very highly of her. I thought that she was bringing some ideas to the table that nobody else was. I thought she was going to really be a true like firebrand that was kind of appealing to a lot of different groups of people. And I really believed that she was genuine. And I was hoping she was going to be Bernie's running mate even. And then time revealed that I was completely wrong about all of that. Completely wrong. You know, and I've met her a couple times, man. I kind of know her. And I just feel like, you know, now like I'm just kind of like, who knows what you'll be saying next year. I mean, I think opportunist is totally right on. Yeah. And friends of mine were like, Ron, you're wrong. You're getting her wrong. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. You got to hear her out. I'm telling you. And none of them have rubbed my nose in it. None of them. I've apologized. I've reached out and I'm like, hey man, I got that one wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And they just kind of said, that's cool. But no one's rubbed my face in it.
Which means, number one, that you have good friends.
Yes.
But I want to tell you, if not for the conversation with my friend, I'm the same way, because like I said, she did have some ideas where I was like, okay, this is good thinking. This puts us having a discussion we don't have, that kind of thing. You know, she had some ideas like that. So without talking to my friend, I'm in the same boat, and you know, a lot of people were. You weren't alone in that. I just had a conversation that made me think, all right, you know, let's watch and see and see where we are. It wasn't like I was against her. I wasn't. You know, had she taken the nomination, I would have been fine with it at the time. You know, it was, I would have been in the same way. I was lucky to have someone who's really involved and told me some things and some stories about just how her mind changed a little quick and a little bit 180 for something. And you know, and it was really interesting. Like, he didn't paint her as evil or anything like that. It was like, well, you know, when there's opportunity, she knows how to go at it, you know. And so that really changed me a lot. So I was, you know, but I was happy a Hawaiian was involved on that level, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your friend is correct. It's 100% correct, because it just seemed like eventually it just became clear. It's like, oh, you're just wherever the contrarian online pulse is, yes. You just go there.
Yeah.
You just go there and hope something grows. And that's literally all you do.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's not, there's nothing sincere there. And honestly, the things I'm saying about her, I could also say about 99% of other politicians too.
Sure.
But it's like this one, for me personally, this one hurts because this is one case where I thought this was something different.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was 99% of all the other ones who I already knew were 99% of all the other ones.
Yes. Right.
So I had to, I mean, you know, with politics and the Hawaii thing, but I will say, man, I always, you know, I mean, you know, like I've done a lot of stuff in the political comedy space, especially over the past like 6 or 7 years, however much it's been. And I always, you know, like I always look for your response on Twitter. And, you know, if we ever have like some strategic differences, I always am like, okay, I got to think about this more, because if Kermit's not, you know, like I got to think about this, you know, and I'm like, all right, like, wow. Am I missing something? Like, what am I, you know, like, should I be reassessing? And I can't remember the specifics, but I think at one time I tweeted something about Fauci. I'm not a fan of Dr. Fauci.
Right.
And it's really hard to communicate that, because I think that there are very valid criticisms of him, but I think that often there's so many, and this is, of course, going back to like 2020 through 2022, there's so many criticisms of that guy for all the wrong reasons that sometimes valid ones get kind of muted.
Yes.
And so for me, it's like, I'm criticizing the guy because A, I think he's an absolutely terrible communicator at a time where we needed a good one. And B, I think much like our entire system, he's a capitalist first and public health is an afterthought. And he's demonstrated that his entire career. Now, is that unique to him? No, because anyone who has to have that job in the United States, that's what they're going to do.
Yep.
But I think we still got to be shouting about it. So yeah, I remember like you responded to something I said about him, and it kind of made me think like okay, like I gotta package this the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't remember I remember us doing that, because it's very rare that I shouldn't say very rare, but it's rare that I feel like, that you and I are in a confrontational place, and I don't remember what it was about specifically, but I do remember thinking, should I post this? Should I, you know what I mean? I don't want to get in your face, and because here's the thing, what you say about me, I absolutely think that about you. I love the way you you look at things, because I think blatant partisanship is one of the real downfalls of where we are right now, is that if you believe in your cult, no matter where, it just like, and people just don't like when I say that I'm not the biggest fan of Biden, right? And but it's not like, I hate all Democrats, I hate him, it really is a thing where that specific thing and the way you said it, I felt came off, that I wanted to mention the argument, and it had nothing to do with like, because you're right, man, that Fauci took a lot of crap that was just like insane, like people calling for his head kind of thing, and just
for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And so, but I just felt like in the way that was presented, like, I disagree with whatever. Like I said, I can't remember specifically.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where when I see your tweets and when I talk to you outside of social media, I'm really impressed at how you look at things, because you really do look at things a certain way, and it's one of those things where I've never seen you try and like ride the Democratic line, or the Republican line. You're not riding anybody's kind of like, you're not jumping on their trolley and just going down the path, right? You always taking everything individually, and I think that's the way to do it. And so yeah, that was one of those rare times, and I think we because you did kind of reply, and I saw what you were saying.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean we talked it out, and I totally, it's one of those things, like I totally saw where you were coming from. And I'm like, I get that. And I was like, here's where I'm coming from. And yeah, we did. I don't remember like all the details either. It's not really important. And I think we kind of like, saw each other's, point.
Right.
But I did learn a very valuable lesson there, where it's just like, okay, like if you're going to in the future, I think I did. It was very helpful for me, because like I had and this wasn't really Twitter, but like in conversations I've had with my friends, when he would come up, at first they'd be like, Ron, do you have a MAGA hat under there? What's going on with you? And then I'd be like, no, here's where I'm coming from. And I would break it down. And even like friends of mine who were like scientists and stuff were like, yeah, actually, that's fair. I think you're right. Right. So, but, so I wanted to ask you, one of the things that I'm trying to do with this series is stories that I really love, that I want to help share. And you have one of my favorite Mitch Hedberg stories in the world, probably my favorite Mitch Hedberg stories. I only know so many people who knew him firsthand, and you did. So I was wondering if you would share that story.
Okay. Yeah. I will share the story, but I want to preface this story in saying that it is a story of kindness.
Yes.
And it's a story of just an absolutely sweet person. And so Mitch was kind of open micing and doing some gigs around Seattle and everything. And I told him one time, I said, man, you got to see some other audiences. I think you would help you, and I think audiences would love what you're doing, because it was very different. And by the way, it wasn't really what we know Mitch to be. He was working on that, right? So it was very newer. The setups were longer, and it wasn't as quick as, he learned all that kind of later. But we all knew the dude was really funny. Like we'd sit in the back and we couldn't wait to see his open mic sets. It was a blast to watch.
He was that guy.
Comics loved him more than the audience most of the time. And there are sometimes audiences would really click, and you'd get so excited for him. But so anyway, I said, you got to get. So I had a chance to offer him a gig down in Medford, Oregon, which is 9-hour drive, 8.5 to 9 hours. It's a long ways.
Yeah.
And I said, do you want to go do this gig with me? And he said, yeah. Well, back then, oftentimes the feature act would drive the headliner, but I knew Mitch didn't have a car. And I knew he was broke. So I said, hey, I'll drive and I'll pick you up. And so about halfway, I think we're near Salem or something. I said, hey, I need to get gas and grab some, we can grab some lunch. And so we pull over and he goes, hey man, I can't pay you for gas till after we get paid tonight. And I said, Mitch, don't worry about gas. I was heading that way anyway. I wasn't going to charge you for gas. And so we put gas and then I bought him lunch and, cause I appreciate it, man. They're willing to be in the car for 9 hours for basically $100, right? I mean, I appreciate that he came with me and I like hanging out with him. We got along real well and we had great conversations and stuff. So I buy him lunch. And so he's like really appreciative. Thank you so much. And Mitch, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. So we do the gig. It's a bar in Medford, Oregon. And then afterwards, everybody goes to this other bar where there's a live band. And basically half the people in the show are going to be at this small club, listen to music. So we go over there and Mitch did a good job, had money in his pocket, right? So we're hanging out at the bar. At the time, I had been dating my wife for about like 9 months, and smoking was allowed indoors. So I kind of told Mitch, I go, hey man, I'm going to head back to the hotel. And if you need a ride back, let me know. And he's sitting there talking to this woman at the bar. And I said, if you need a lift, let me know. And, I'll come and pick you up. And he goes, don't worry, man, I'll grab a cab. And I go, dude, this is Medford, Oregon. There's no cabs. I said, there's probably one cab driver and I'll bet you he's asleep right now.
Yeah.
So I said, give me a call. It's not a problem. I'll be awake. I just got to get out of the smoke. And so I went to my room and I'm just sitting there and I don't mean to be so graphic, but I'm sitting there watching Letterman in boxer shorts. There's a knock at the door. I open the door and there's Mitch standing there in boxer shorts. and I figured he was coming to ask me what time we're leaving in the morning, if he has to set an alarm or whatever, because that's something you kind of need to figure out. When are we leaving town? We have a 9-hour drive back tomorrow.
And this was pre-text messaging. This was pre-cell phone.
Right. And it's pre-text messaging. He doesn't want to call my room because that might wake me up. So he's tapping on the door lightly because if I'm awake, I'll answer the door. So that's why we're standing there looking at each other in boxer shorts. So I said, hey, what's up, Mitch? And he goes, hey, man. He goes, that woman I was talking to? I said, yeah. I said, yeah. And he goes, she's in my room, man. Which is really unlike Mitch. Mitch wasn't one of those guys that bragged about his road stuff. It just wasn't. Mm-hmm. It was very bizarre. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I was talking to her, man, and yeah, she's into it. And I went, she's into it? Like, I don't know what. And this is kind of awkward. And he goes, yeah, if you want to, come over, And I realized what he's offering me. Mm-hmm. And I just went, oh, wow. I didn't know what to think. That's just, I never even thought. And I don't know what to say at all. But I realize this is really true the nicest thing any comedian's ever done for me and will ever do for me. You know what I mean? Like it's like bowling a 300. It will only be tied. No one will ever top this. Right? The nicest comedian will never give me what this guy's about to offer because comics do not share in that arena. Right. And I was just like, so what there was this sort of odd, kind of weird thing for me, especially me. I'm a very square person and I don't mean to be, it's just kind of how I am. I'm just kind of boring. Sure. And so it was a lot for me to process, but under it all, I'm thinking, this is so sweet. This is so nice. Right.
It's the aloha spirit.
This is the most aloha spirit ever. So so I don't know what to say. And like any uncomfortable comedian, what do? I try and make a joke. I go, oh, Mitch, thanks, man. But I said, I'm good. And then I said, I mean, if you could have her say my name at some point, that'd be fine. Right. Thinking I'll make some goofy joke. Right. And it's a bad joke. I know. So Mitch, he pauses and he goes, yeah, I'm going to go. and I was like, yeah, okay, Mitch, I'll see you tomorrow. And it was just the funniest thing. And like I said, it's a weird story to tell about this revered comic and everything. And for a long time, I want to say I didn't tell that story. No one really knew about it. I think I told one comedian friend of mine and said, don't tell anybody. And we were cracking up about it, just, but I said, don't, and he didn't say anything to anyone. And then a few years after his death, he was saying, a few of us were sitting around. He goes, "You should tell that story." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "No, man." He goes, "Hey, he's been dead a few years, because I didn't want to be, especially as he got more successful. I didn't want to do that thing where like, well, he's a star. Well, let me tell you this: when I was, when I took him to a gig, I didn't want to be that guy, because." I don't want to be the comedian that's always trying to say like I know famous guys, Sure. And so I didn't tell it, but a few of us were sitting around and he said tell the story. I think Mitch would laugh about this, and so I did tell the story, so it became a little more public. But it is truly a story, not so much about a comic, offering me to join him in a thing, but it was more just. He was so appreciative that number one, I got him a gig outside of Seattle. Number two, I paid for gas and lunch, and then told him about the bar hangout afterwards. Took him there. You know what I mean? Like he was really thrilled. Like he was doing the road comic thing, right? He had a hotel, and not that was the first time he had done gigs, but he didn't do a lot of them. But he got to do the road comic, so there was a lot in his mind of like, man, I really appreciate it. And if I can't give Kermit money, can I do anything for him? It was like, so it's really it's a sweet story in its heart, like in its really basic form.
Well, and I think it's also, I mean, it is a very sweet story. And it's also, I think, a very proper story. I mean, look, he had a discussion with her. She can say it's not like he assumed or anything like that. Like he had a discussion with her, which, by the way, kind of like put his evening at risk.
Right.
Because she might have said, "You weirdo, get out of, I'm out of here," or something like that. But he's like, "No, I want to try to include my friend. Let's see if and she said, "Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm into it." And so he also went to the other potential party for consent, and you awkwardly said, "No, thank you." And he said, "Cool, see you later." I mean, that's kind of a valuable, I think, proper, consenting, sex positive story.
Yeah, I guess it is, right? And I love just the possibility that the conversation started with him saying, "So did you enjoy Kermit's set? Did you think he was funny?
How much did you enjoy his set?" No, I think that's a really wonderful story, man. I think it really is, and I think it's like an interesting, because I mean I never got to meet him, but like I can kind of picture it, like just from like seeing him on stage and stuff like that, and it also speaks to kind of the majesty of the road. Like I'll never forget just like the play-by-play of my first Tribble run.
Yeah.
Like I'll never forget. And for anyone not, the Tribble run is this string of gigs that I don't think it exists anymore, actually.
No, he retired about 2 years ago.
Yes. So it's a string of gigs where you drive all throughout the Northwest playing these one night shows in everything from bowling alleys to hotel event spaces for like no money, but you have such an amazing, amazing time. And I remember my first booking, like I still remember it. I literally saved the itinerary.
Oh, did you really?
In like a special, like they send you an itinerary, and of course, like these itineraries are just epically hilarious all in themselves because they have to have all these disclaimers of don't show up drunk, Your meal ticket does not include booze. Please don't order 2 prime ribs when you're getting a comp dinner, because there's always been. Usually it's like 1 or 2 comics ruin it for everyone else.
Yep, absolutely.
Like everyone else is reasonable, but then like one person's like, "Oh, I get a comp meal. I'll take 5 prime ribs and 2, full dessert." It's like, okay, dude, like we get it. Food is part of our compensation, but when you overdo it, they're gonna take that away. So.
Yeah, and then the next time you come back, it's half price on cheese sticks is what you're offered. You know
right,
what I mean?
exactly.
It's always that way.
Yeah, they take it back where they're just like, oh yeah, we give you 10% off food, and it's like, just give me nothing. Like, just do you want me to take 10% off my show? Like, what do you like?
But yeah, those. So I'm the same way. I remember the first 2 weeks after I quit my day job, going out for those gigs, and those Tribble gigs, the drives, every morning you're packing your bag and you're going to the next town. Those drives could be anywhere from 2 to 8 hours to the next town. I remember the Montana run was like Missoula Tuesday, Helena Wednesday, Thursday way out in Butte. Then you'd come back to Kalispell, which is 4 hours the other way, and then out to Billings, which is 5 hours. You got to go past Butte to get to Billings, but that's just the way the club wanted, right? That club didn't want a Thursday; they wanted a Friday, so he had to kind of do it that way. And they were long drives. You got to really know the comedian you were working with, for better or worse. Some of them you realize, I don't really like this person, or they realize they don't really like you, and now you're in the car for 4 hours a day for the next week. It's what it was. It was kind of this badge of honor we all wore, right? If you were a Northwest comic, you did those runs, and you came back with maybe a little bit of money if your car didn't break down, and but you had the badge of like, I did it, and you did the Montana run, and we would feel it in our hearts,
Dude, I had a strut in my step when I got back, and honestly, I mean, there's no way. I definitely lost money. Like, there's no, because I did like it was the Montana run, but it was like what was left of the Montana run, even at that point in time. Right. So it was like you were out for 6 days, but you only had gigs on 3 of them. Yeah. And when you don't have a gig, they don't give you a hotel, like nothing. So you're just trying to figure it out. Right. So, I mean, it was like, there's no way I made a dime when all was said and done. But I was just so freaking excited. Yeah, I didn't care. And in the next, the next week when I showed up for Open Bike, like I kind of had a strut. And people were just like, "Whoa, Ron's back from his Tribble run." Yeah, what's next week's the Tonight Show, right? Not quite.
Luckily for me, when I started, you could go out for 3 weeks and have 2 days off, right? So you could sleep at a rest area, or maybe, throw together a Motel 6 money or something like that, for one of the nights. But you could actually work, 5-6 nights a week, and then maybe have the Sunday off.
Yeah. See, those runs were very few and far between by the time I was there. But now it's like, I mean, dude, it's so crazy, because now, like, I'm in a situation where I'm talking about what it used to be like when I was starting out, because now it's even more bleak than when I started, because it's like, when I was, like coming up, like 20s coming up, whatever, you could still get by as a feature. Right. In many cases, like you had to be very smart about it. You had to have, usually you would have to, like, especially if you were younger, like you'd want to try to do some colleges and stuff like that. But you could get by as like mainly a feature act and make enough money to live. I don't know if that's still the case anymore.
It's not. It really isn't. And what's happened a lot is that social media has made it easier to find and understand what open mic is. When we started, it really was, you had to go down to the comedy club or call, find out how it works, when are signups and everything. And then you had no idea if you could do it, right? But now people are watching open mic videos online and they go, oh, I can be that bad. And so, and I'm not judging, by the way. When we do open mic, when you first start, you're bad. You just have to learn how to do it, right? And so I think now, with more people trying comedy, more people doing it, any town with any decent size that has 1 or 2 major clubs, they are now having enough features in their town where they don't have to book anybody from outside. That saves them a hotel room or a bigger condo or whatever. That saves them money, and they can just pay a local feature, right? So it's harder to go on the road as a feature now because there are some cities that just they don't really need another feature, and
Right.
so it has gotten so much more difficult. The thing now is to just try and develop a crowd through your social media and then travel based on them, or if a relatively well-known headliner who can bring their own openers or features likes you, then they'll bring you to that club. But other than that, it's really difficult as a feature now. It's hard.
Yeah. So in closing, what do you want to plug?
I really don't have that much to plug, man. I've got I'm going to start learning Instagram. My kids open an Instagram for me.
There you go. There you go.
They're like, Dad, how can you be a comedian and not be on Instagram? Because they see comedian clips coming through every day, So I'm going to be
Dude, look it up then on Instagram.
Yeah,
that guy's a monster on Instagram.
Yeah. So I'm going to start using that, and just still doing comedy on the road, and I know on the Wednesday music on Facebook Live, I do a 6 p.m. Pacific time. I do a Wednesday music show.
Where can people find that? Is it just Kermet Apio, your personal page, or is it a comedy?
You just go to my personal page, and it pops up. Because I'm Hawaiian, it's never right at 6 o'clock. It's usually I'm trying to click on things, and then I look up at the clock on my computer, like, oh, it's 6:03. All right, got to get on there. So there's that, and comedy's been pretty busy, which is great. I'm occasionally I go out on tour with Brian Regan, which I'm very lucky and happy about. He's amazing. So sometimes I'm on his shows. Yeah.
I wanted to actually. I will mention one quick thing about that, because that was the only thing that was on my list that we didn't get to. So since you brought it up organically, like I really do have so much respect for like the comedians who reach that level and they just bring heavy hitters out with them, where it's like Brian Regan brings you out, Jim Gaffigan brings Ted Alexandro out, which is like, I think for those guys, like the favor it does them is it if they ever ask themselves, am I taking it easy because I've reached this point of fame where like I have my audience, they'll always be able to say, no, I'm not, because I have to follow Kermet Apio every night, or no, I'm not, because I have to follow Ted Alexandro every night. I mean, that's pretty, that's pretty like mad respect.
I appreciate you saying that. And there is something to it. Like because especially with Regan's crowd, you got to realize that Brian Regan's audience, they're not there because he was on this movie or this TV show or they recognize him from a thing.
Right.
Everyone is there because they love his stand-up. That's what Brian is famous for, which is a very difficult and rare thing, right? That's
almost the opposite of most. Like
yes.
for people, like most comedians, it is the total opposite. And like people like Gaffigan, Regan, like that's the exception.
Yeah. And so and the other thing is that a lot of gigs like that, you might come out cold, or they'll just turn down the lights and say, please welcome Kermet Apio, or whatever, Well, Brian does this thing where the intro says, welcome to an evening of comedy with Brian Regan, everybody claps. And then as that applause comes down, the line that is read is, Brian would like to present his special guest for you. And then they do my intro. And that little subtle thing means I have a chance, because they're going, oh, Brian wants us to see this person. That's a hugely different thing than, the opener. This is the guy we didn't come to see, right? It's a different vibe when you first start. So Brian gives you every chance to do well, and he wants you to do well. And that's amazing to me. And like you said, he's going to come out and kill it. He's going to, he's going to be amazing. And by the way, they talk about the whole meeting your heroes thing, and I get it. But he's one of my favorite comics, and as I've gotten to know him, he's as nice as he is funny. He's very genuine. He's very very kind and sweet and incredibly generous. as a human being, and so that's been amazing to be on that tour and to find out, oh, he's just a great person, and it's a sweet gig, and it's one that I don't take for granted. I'm very, very lucky I get to be on that very small roster. I mean, there's like maybe 5 of us on that roster, 4 or 5. Like, I'm glad to be on it.
Hell yeah, man. Dude, that's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for being an awesome mentor to me over the years, and still to this day. So thank you for that.
I really appreciate it. I have been a fan of yours from the early days, and I'm just so impressed with what you've built there, man. I'm really proud of you on many levels, man. In comedy, in commentary, in video stuff, you're just doing so well, and I can't be more proud.
That was Kermet Apio. Be sure to check him out. His website is ikerm.com. Check out when he's coming to a city near you, and check out his Dry Bar special. You can find all that stuff on YouTube. Music for the 1000 podcast is provided by Andrew Saxena. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. I said podcast way too many times in that sentence. Leave us a 5-star review, would you? This is still a very new show, so when you leave us a 5-star review, when you write a good review, it really helps us in the algorithm. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, you can do so over on patreon.com/romplacone. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of cool bonus content. You can get all my stuff in a one-stop shop. I'll make you a theme song, and you get the bonus podcast between Andrew and myself. And again, that's all for a Give What You Can level. Even $1 a month goes a long way. That's patreon.com/romplacone. All right. Almost 15 is kind of a milestone number, right? And that's next episode is going to be episode 15. And that will also be our last episode for 2023. So we're getting closer. Every episode, we are a little bit closer to 1,000. Crazy how that works. See y'all next week. Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.